to take you on a bit of a journey through some Australian music and some music from all over the place. We're going to start with a piece of music by Australian composer Gerard Brophy called Trance Ripples, with marimba and doumbek and cymbals. Thanks very much. Thank you, Cameron Gregory. Ladies and gentlemen, Cameron Gregory. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, David. So the next piece I'm going to play for you is back at the start of the COVID lockdown, which we all remember fondly, I'm sure. I decided after losing all my work that I would put together a new program. And one of my favourite composers is an American composer called Ivan Trevino, and he wrote a lot of works for marimba duet. Unfortunately, there's not too many of these instruments in the country, especially two of them, let alone touring them. So I decided to do some duets with myself. This is a brand new one, which I only premiered a couple of weeks ago, and it's also about to get released. I did it with a drummer called Glenn Wilson, who's a really well-known session drummer. And this piece of music is called 2300, and it's about what happens at glass at the temperature 2300. And yeah, so it's playback track. I recorded one of the marimba parts, and I'm going to play a duet with myself. 2300 by Ivan Trevino. does write pretty beautiful music. And I will be playing another piece of Ivan's a little bit later. Next piece, I've been playing for a while actually. Believe it or not, I played this piece at this university in 2011, but it has been changed significantly since then. Some people mightn't, does anyone know what these instruments are called? Has anyone seen them before? Predominantly uni students? Any drummers in the room? Toms? Huh? They're called crotales, also known as antique cymbals. They're pretty awesome. If you're into Danny Carey, he uses them a lot. Oh, no, these. I'm sure you know what those are. Yeah. So these are called crotales. They're really interesting instruments, and after the concert I'm going to hang around a bit if you want to come up and ask any questions or anything, if there are any composers in the room, or percussionists or drums or just anyone. I'm more than happy to talk about the music and the instruments. The next piece of music is called Individual Lemming. It's by a Hungarian composer called Tilla Svitzler, and it's basically not about the lemmings as in the computer games, even though it sounds a little bit like that. It's actually about the little lemming creature. So this is called Individual Lemming by Attila.
you. Thank you, David.
I'm going to get Cameron to introduce this piece.
Okay. I think we're going to be playing the drums. Is that right, Dave?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So this is a piece called Ziggity Bob by someone you probably know, Diana Blom. Yeah? Woo!
Who unfortunately has COVID.
Yeah. So we were really terrified because we were going to play it in front of her today.
Yeah.
And now we
she's
don't have
terrified. So we might vibe it a bit.
Yeah. No, we've played this a few times, and it's a really fun piece for two drummers playing 4 drums each. It's really interesting in the sense of the rhythms that it uses, basically based around groups of 8th notes, triplets, and groups of 5 across 2. So a few polyrhythmic things going along there, which is a heaps of fun to play together. And an interesting piece for me because there's a bit of history here. This piece I was supposed to perform way back in 2000, I think it was, when, or even in the late 90s when I was an artist in residence here with a group called Batuta. And Lee Giles was also in Batuta, and this piece was written for him. And he said, "Oh, do you want to play this piece with me?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." But I never got to see it. I don't know why. And then David, years and years and years later, said, "Oh, I've got this new piece I'd like you to have a look at." And it happened to be this one. So enjoy.
Ziggity Bop by Diana Blom.
Yep.
great piece of music written by Diana, and it's really good that there's Australian composers whose music that we're playing that are alive, even though they're not here. I'm going to leave Cameron Gregory with you guys for a little while just so I can rest my brain. Cameron's going to... The amazing thing about Cameron, I've known Cameron for many years. Lots of touring with him all over the world and Australia and whatnot. And one thing I've always been blown away by Cameron is his ability to play brushes. So do we have any drummers in the audience?
No.
Ah, that's weird.
Right, okay.
Cool.
Cool.
No worries. So you could probably talk about it a little bit. Cameron studied brush playing in New York, with which I suppose is the the epicenter of that kind of playing. So I'm going to leave him with you for 6 or so minutes to play through a beautiful brush solo called Brush It.
Okay, you go and relax, Dave.
No worries.
So, yeah, as Dave said, I studied playing brushes in New York when I was living there. Brushes, or these are what brushes are. You'll notice on percussion instruments and percussion playing, there's lots and lots of different mallets and sticks and things like brushes that you can use to get different sounds. If somebody's going to learn to play drums, they usually get a set of drumsticks and they'll get a set of brushes as well. And they might move on to some mallets after that, those big white mallets that you see used on the timpani. They sound nice on cymbals and drums too. So that's usually the tool set that you'll find in the stick bag of a drummer. And the drumsticks, the brushes, and the odd white-topped mallet. Brush playing is a tradition and a speciality, something that you can really get lost in. And the main reason for playing brushes is in the jazz idiom, and so that you can play a little bit softer than if you were playing with sticks. So probably if you've seen somebody play brushes in sort of a rock and roll band or something, you've probably heard this sound before. That's usually where we start, and that's actually quite hard to do. You've got a few different sounds going on there. The open sound and the slap sound, and there's lots and lots of other sounds that you can get too. One of the things that's really hard to do on brushes is any of the rudiments. So if you know anything about drumming is based around rudiments, building your rudiments. So the double stroke roll, which is right, right, left, left. With sticks, it's hard to do, but with brushes, we don't get any bounce, so it's even harder. Anything like paradiddles or such, they're all hard to do. So when I was a very young drummer, I got right into playing all of the different rudiments with the brushes because I was told that was a great way to learn to play your rudiments on the drums, and it turned out that it was. Now, so rudimental playing, hard to do with the brushes, but just your traditional beat that you might play in a swing band. That's an example of what you might hear if you're going to go and see a jazz band or a swing band. What's happening there is I'm trying to create the sound of a ride cymbal. So, cymbal similar to this one. Trying to recreate that with the brushes so that it's softer. So that if I'm in a small nightclub or something and someone's singing along to the band, I don't get in the way. Alright, so Dave likes me to tell you a bit about the brushes, and there's lots more in the tradition of it. He also likes me to give you an example of a bit of brush playing around the drums here. So I'll do that. You might have noticed, I don't know if you did, but you might have noticed in zigging the bolt, I don't have any way of stopping my left foot from moving. It's because of this. I played in jazz bands for many, many years. I don't tend to do it so much anymore because you sort of get spoilt in New York with the sort of people that you play with. And I do love playing with the Australian jazz musicians. They are wonderful, but I don't quite do it as much anymore as I used to. But I can't play drums without this going along. This is the backbeat, okay? 2, 4, 1, 2, what people might flick. But I'll just try and keep that going while I show you just a little example of what we might do on the brushes. It's sort of like a medium swing, and then we've got the 2 of the 4, and we go just a basic ballad. So we might be thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's sort of your burner. I don't 1, 2, 3, 4 giant steps or something like that for Coltrane. And then going around the drums when you're doing a solo or something with the brushes, you then bring in your rudimental playing. Do a little bit of that, and then I'll probably get Dave to come out here again. Thank you. Now we're... see, there he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cameron Gregory.
Thank you very much.
The next piece, I'm going to play another work by Ivan Tremino. This is the first duet I did of his back in the first lockdown. And yeah, it's a great example of writing common and the American school of writing for marimba. This piece is called Catching Shadows. It's quite a popular piece now, and it does have a bit of multiple versions of it. There's a version of it with percussion ensemble. There's a version of it with orchestra. There's a version with marching band, but I'm the only guy that does it as a duet by myself. So here's Catching Shadows by Ivan Trevino, and it's basically about musical motifs that are chasing each other. Jebbitt, Cameron Gregory. Again. So we're going to play one more piece for you, and then I'm going to open up for a couple of questions. If anyone has any questions.
Questions before.
Huh?
Do you want to do questions?
Questions before?
And then play chords?
You can do that.
How about that?
That sounds like a great idea.
All right.
Does anyone have any questions? We're all music students, composers and such. No questions? Nothing? Oh, there we go. Yep.
How do you manage to practice when there's like 2 sticks on each?
In a dark room by myself for a long time. So we have, the way that I play is a bit of a quasi. Has anyone here heard of Gary Burton? Jazz player? So I play with an inversion of the Gary Burton grip. So if you look really closely, if I show you, with Gary's grip we have the 2 mallets. We have an anchor finger which is in the middle, and then we have a push and pull finger which is here. So if you watch the motion really slowly, see that? So that's a really common one. Mussa is like that, and then Stevens is like this, which looks a bit strange. I only play that kind of way when I'm playing a lot of Bach stuff, because that's all about the wrist. The Burton, which is the method that I play, it's a bit different than Gary, because Gary does lots of, if you watch Gary play, he always does lots of whips. Does lots of that stuff. So I've kind of inverted it that way. So I can play like that. And it's basically one of the strongest grips. Cameron plays, when he plays full mallets, he plays Burton as well. It's very common for drummers and people that are playing a lot of hard repertoire for a long time tend to play that way. There are some percussionists that have played Stevens. Lee Giles, the guy we talked about before, plays with Stevens, and the actual effect of that is that if you hit it too hard, you start to develop like a kink in your finger and you can't shut your hand. So the Burton's one of the strongest grips. So basically 2 motions, that motion, and sitting in a room going, yeah, and then just building up the speed until you can play fast. Does that help? Yeah? Any more questions?
Yep.
Yep.
What's the standard interval form that grip maintains for you?
Okay, this is standard interval, like I suppose the max, the one thing about the Stevens grip is your intervals can get like that,
Right.
which is really wide. Like I could almost get a 12th, I think, if I was lucky. Down the bottom, I can't even get an octave because this instrument's just ridiculously big.
Right.
But for me, one thing when I always talk to composers, I wouldn't want to go above it like a sharp 9, because then it starts getting weird like that. So a common thing with composition, if there's any composers here, is to write in a 2-range spot. Obviously, as you saw before, Ivan wrote like that, which is fine, but it's good to be in like a 2-octave range, because that means I can get like down to a minor second, all the way up to an 11th. Yeah. Any more?
Would you like to say something about the instrument?
Sure. So this is Kalida. Her name's Kalida. It's the Babylonian god of rhythm. You probably didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
No. My wife told me when I named this instrument, I'm not allowed to name my kids, because Kalida's a great name. It's the Babylonian god of rhythm. Kalida weighs about 385 kilos. So for me to get it here and get it home, you're pretty much dealing with once to get it in, once to get it out, once to get it in, once to get it out. So that's over a ton, yeah, of cutting marimba. So the wood is Honduras rosewood, which is the rarest wood in the world, and it's also the most endangered wood in the world. That's how come if I break a key, I'm freaking out, because we've run out of it. There's 2 things that are made in Honduras. Marimba keys, and does anyone know what the second thing is? The ozone layer. Scary. And it's made because of the concentration of trees, oxygen and lightning. So they decided maybe we shouldn't cut down trees to build marimba keys. And I think that's a good thing. But with that means that the keys are very rare and hard to break. They've now come out with things called Purdue marimbas, which are made out of a resin, which don't sound as good. They're kiln dried and left for 30 years before they come on the instrument. So if you want to come down after and have a look at the instrument, by all means, have a look at the keys. That's where the value is. this instrument itself is called a concert marimba, so invented in the 1960s in Japan by a lady called Kiko Abe, in conjunction with a company called Yamaha. Kiko's an interesting one. So when you come up, you'll notice the resonators bend. Kiko has shrunk. She's 85 now, and she keeps getting smaller. So they've actually had to cut the resonators off to make the instrument smaller. But basically, her idea was to have a big version of a xylophone that could be treated as a concert instrument. So the first recital was in 1962. Some very famous pieces of music came from that recital. One by a Japanese composer called Minoru Miki. So any composers here, Minoru Miki is one of the great composers of kind of modern music, or music of the 20th century. And in that was also a saxophone marimba duet, which was written by another Japanese composer. So the instrument itself is relatively probably one of the newest instruments in the library of instruments. Its roots actually go back to an instrument called the balafon, which is an African instrument. That's where the concept was. And then the marimba itself was actually developed in Guatemala. So if you watch YouTube, type in marimba, chances are you're going to see it in Guatemala or somewhere like that, where they're hitting a pentatonic instrument. This instrument is tuned like a piano, looks like a piano. It's a bit harder to play than the piano with four mallets, but yeah. So going price, if you're looking at purchasing one, this one's about $42,000 now. I'm getting a new one next year, which I'm very excited about, from a company called Marimba One. It's a little bit different and it's a little bit bigger, which is absolutely terrifying for me. So I'm going to have to buy a bigger house to get all my instruments in. But yes, her name is Kalita, and feel free to come up and have a look at her. Yeah, she's a great instrument.
And the range is a bit, this is a large range, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is a 5. This is a 5 octave. They do go down now to 5.3, but the 5.3 sucks. It sounds like you're hitting a bit of dead wood. At the bottom, it's like thump. So that is what we classify as C1. So that's the bottom line on the bass clef, bottom, and this is 3 up from treble clef. So 5 octave range. The most common is 4.3. Yeah, so they do come in multiple ones. There are Cameron owns a 4, which is really strange because they don't exist. Cameron's pretty much got the only one. It's the only one I can get into Camelot Lounge too. If anyone goes to Camelot Lounge, the only one that fits on the stage and in the lift. Yeah, so the common 5, 4.3, and then the odd 4 octave. Yeah. Any more?
How did you come to, playing this instrument?
Yeah,
Did you just decide one day I want to play the xylophone?
Yeah, I just said to my parents I want to play concert marimba, and they were like, "That's a great idea." No, my parents. I started playing piano at 5 in a program called Kids on Keyboards. If anyone remembers that program, in the late 80s, and I used to just play along with the numbers. And then I got quite serious on the piano, and then I got to like 6th grade, and my teacher told me, "No, you must play this Chopin thing for your 6th grade." And I said, "No, I'm going to play Billy Joel." So she fired me. Getting fired as an 8-year-old or whatever it was pretty daunting for me. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go play pots and pans. And like any kind of kid, I got in the school band and had a bit of an issue with attention in sitting in saxophones. And the conductor just went, "Go up the back and play cowbell." And I got up there and thought, man, it's heaps better back here. I can just walk off. I can do whatever I want back here. I've got a lot of power back here. But then, obviously, I had a strong fundamental understanding of melody and pitch and harmony, and I studied all those things. And marimba came to me kind of when I was about 13, 14. So I started playing Bach. I don't know why. One person told me, at that point I was coming to Sydney from lessons because I grew up in country New South Wales. Came to Sydney for lessons. My teacher told me at that point, you probably should look at studying this stuff, which not only helped my bass clef reading, but also just helped me understand the instrument. And then, yeah, I started developing 4 mallet playing, and then went to university and thought, yeah, this has got to be a vibe. There's not too many people. The marimba's the instrument I always knew you heard on things, but you never saw it. So if you watch the ABC, if there's a shot over Uluru, there's a high probability there's marimba going on in the background. So I was always interested by the sound, and I was always interested about the plethora of instruments to play. But the concert marimba came to me as a soloist quite late in high school. But then obviously I couldn't afford to purchase one. So I got this one when I was 26, 27. Thanks to Malatech, hooked me up, and I only had to pay freight and a bit of other things. And then started taking it very serious from there, and then went to uni for 10 years, did my masters. Yeah, that's it. One more question before the end, the last piece. get risk? No, absolutely not. So I was a bit naughty today. I didn't warm up in the same context that I should have, just because you've got to get in, you've got to get out. It's always stressful. I start every practice at home with a good comprehensive 15-minute warm-up. Whether that be things like playing bark stuff, that kind of stuff, where I'm focusing on individual strokes with no pressure, but I've always focused on trying to make sure my hands are in good nick as I do my ears. I remember seeing there's a really amazing drummer who's dead now called Joe Morello, who's like the master of the molar technique. And I remember seeing him playing an 80 and thought, man, I want to be able to do that. Look up Joe Morello on YouTube, he's 80. There was one of him playing take 5 on Letterman blind, and he was like 88 or something. But his wrists just looked like silk. And I remember I read a couple of things he wrote, and it was all about just taking that 15 minutes to spend stretching, warming up, focusing on individual strokes and things like that. So I actually have invested quite heavily into that, and but I always set goals for it. So I might be, yesterday when I was practicing, I was like, no, I'm going to learn the first page of this well-tempered clavier, this bark thing I wanted to learn, but doing it in a way that it was as a warm-up. Yeah, so I haven't really got wrist problems before, but I'm always aware of what's happening. As you would have noticed with Cameron's playing as well, you've got to protect this and you've got to protect this. Yeah, cool? Excellent. All right, we're going to play one more piece, which is a really cool piece of music for marimba and this drum called the Darabuka. This piece was written for me last year by another Australian composer who wrote the first piece, Jared Brophy, and he wrote it for me and said, what do you think of this? I thought, man, this is really rhythmical, and it's really hard because it changes time signatures every bar. What can I do to make it sound cool? I said, I know what I'll do. I'll get Cameron to play Darabuka on it. So I thank Cameron greatly for this because it is quite a challenging piece of music to play. But it's written by an Australian composer. It's called Waterfall. It's about a place in Turkey that he visits frequently. And yeah, so thank you so much for having us. It's been a blast coming here and playing again and just playing for great people. So we'll play this, and then if you want to come up and ask any questions or have a look at the instrument or anything, feel free. This is Waterfall by Jared Brophy. thanks very much. If you want to come down and check out the instrument and all that kind of stuff, feel free. We've had a blast. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.